Hey, welcome to the Press Box Chronicles with Jeff Pearlman. Hey, welcome to the Press Box Chronicles with Jeff Pearlman, the show where a cranky middle-aged sports writer, that's me, who's seen it all, takes you behind the scenes and into the stories. I am your host, Jeff Pearlman. And today, we're going to talk about something that's very near and dear to my heart, the TV show Winning Time, which was based upon my 2014 Lakers book, Showtime. And Winning Time to me represents my trip to fantasy camp. That's really what it was. It was a trip to fantasy camp for me. It was something that happened and feels like it never happened in many ways. It was a joy, it was a little bit of heartbreak, and there was also a really bad skin infection. So let's dive in. I'm going to start this story in a really weird place. As an author, if you write enough books, you tend to get people trying to option your books. And what that means is you give someone the rights, usually they pay you a little bit of money, and they write a script and they try to sell it to someone. I would say 98.5% of the time it goes nowhere. And you're lucky if you get $5,000 for someone optioning your book. I have had many of my books optioned, and that's not a brag. If that sounds like a brag, that's not a brag. It almost never goes anywhere. And I had a moment, one of my lowest moments in my career actually involved having a book optioned, which was I wrote a book about the 86 Mets called The Bad Guys Won. A guy wanted to option it. I won't name his name. He takes me to a place called the Soho House in Los Angeles. And he starts talking to me about how great the book is and he wants to option it. And then he goes to me, yo, I just got divorced lately. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. And he's like, it's okay, because I'm fucking lots of women. And I'm like, oh. And he's like, let me show you pictures. And he takes out his phone and he starts scrolling through naked and half-naked photos of women he's apparently fucking. And this is him trying to buy the rights to my book. And I'm like, I don't think this is for me. And it really turned me off to Hollywood. Like in a major, major way, turned me off to Hollywood. I'm just not that guy. So I write this book about the Lakers called Showtime. It comes out in 2014. It does really well. And there's a screenwriter based out of LA named Jim Hecht. And Jim Hecht's claim to fame at the time in the business was he wrote the script to the second Ice Age movie, an animated film. And he calls me one day or reaches out to me one day and he says, hey, I really love Showtime. I really want to option it. Can we sit down and talk? He's like, I will come to you. And he comes to my house in 2015, I think, actually on Easter Sunday. He's Jewish, I'm Jewish, no Easter celebration. We're just having family dinner at my house. And Jim Hecht comes, this guy, the screenwriter. And in one of the weirdest moments ever, he shows up at my house, knocks on the door, shows up at my house, and he has three things with him. A block of baker's chocolate wrapped in saran wrap, a very large tomato, and a bottle of imitation wine drink that I guess he picked up at Grand Central Station, taking the train to New Rochelle. He comes in and he gives my wife the three gifts. And my wife kind of calls me in the kitchen and she's like, who the fuck is this guy? And why is he giving us baker's chocolate? And I'm like, I don't even know. But we sit down for dinner and he's talking about his love for this book and his love for the Lakers. And he has this vision, what this can be. I know this can be this. I know this can be that. And I'm kind of like, all right, whatever, sure, okay, pretending enthusiasm, but really knowing this is never going to go anywhere. And he's like, if you would just give me a shot. You know, he was like young and scrappy and trying to make it. And I was like, okay. And I did something you're never actually supposed to do, which is I gave away my product for nothing. I gave him, he had like 12 months to work on it. I didn't even ask him to pay me. Okay, 12 months, go ahead. And the time passes, and every now and then he calls me and he'll be like, Will Smith. And I'll be like, okay. And he'll be like, this is going to happen. And I'm like, okay. I just don't believe it. I don't believe it. And years go by and years go by. And every now and then I'll talk to Jim or his partner, Jason, and he'll be like, yeah, no, this is good thing is happening. And I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. Well, one day Jim calls me and he's like, Adam McKay wants us to go to his house. And I'm like, Adam McKay? He's like, Adam McKay. I don't know who Adam McKay is, but I Google him and Adam McKay is the former SNL writer, did The Big Short, did Don't Look Up, Step Brothers, a million different awesome kick-ass movies. And we go to Adam McKay's house to meet Adam McKay. And I confess to Jim, I don't even know who Adam McKay is. He's like, you don't? I'm like, I don't. We go to his house And Adam McKay is lying on a couch and he's like, man, love the book. I just think this project could be great. I think this is going to be awesome. I love it. And I'm like, well, all right, that sounds good. And I leave Adam McKay's Hollywood house thinking this shit is never going to happen. This isn't going to happen. I'm a cynical, old New York writer raised by a father, Stanley Pearlman, who taught me never think anything good is going to happen because you would just be disappointed. And I assume nothing good is going to happen. And then one day in the year 2018, early 2019, someone calls me and says, holy shit, did you read the Hollywood Reporter? And I'm like, no. And like, you got to go to the website. And I go to the Hollywood Reporter website, and it's, I forgot which one it was first. I think it was John C. Reilly agrees to star in series based on Laker book. And I'm like, I think that's my Laker book. And I call my wife in, that's my Laker book. Adrian Brody agrees to sign, blah, blah, blah. Sally Field. That's when I got my wife. Sally Field agrees to sign Lakers series. And all these stars are lining up to be in this series, Winning Time. And I'm like, holy shit, this is actually happening. And I have with me, among my many collections that my wife finds annoying, this is the framed call sheet from the pilot episode, from one of the days of filming the pilot episode of Winning Time. It's dated October 3rd, 2019. And as the show was being created, every now and then they would call me. And I think I was listed as like a producer or co-producer or something producer, I don't even know. And every now and then they would call me and they'd be like, Jeff, do you have any idea what the uniforms were like in the 1979 NBA Summer League? Jeff, do you have any idea what the material was like with the basketball? Jeff, like all of these questions, right? Which really showed me they were taking this thing seriously. Well, on this day in October, they asked me and my wife, do you guys want to have cameos in the pilot? And I asked my wife, Catherine, my wife is a social worker. I'm like, do you want to play someone in the series? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, yeah. So we go up to LA, and it took place at the Hollywood Roosevelt, which was an old hotel. And they decked it out to look like the old Laker offices, or the old NBA offices. And we show up on set that day, and they're like, we have a trailer for you, Mr. Pearlman. And I'm like, you have a trailer? And I get to the trailer. We have our own trailer. Now, they misspelled my last name on the trailer. It said P-E-R-L, not P-E-A-R-L. And I thought that was funny as all hell. On the call sheet, they misspelled my name, P-E-R-L, not P-E-A-R-L. Funny as hell, didn't care. You go on the set, free food. They take you to makeup. They take you to wardrobe. They dress you up as an old reporter. They dress my wife up as a secretary for the Chicago Bulls. I'm in my trailer, taking off my costume because it has to get fitted. This is super weird and kind of cool. So we're on the set, and yeah, it's my turn as a reporter from the 70s. Okay, bye. And it was magical. It was magical. It felt like we won a day at Hollywood camp. Truly, it did. And I played a reporter at a press conference in the NBA's office, NBA league office. My wife played the secretary to the GM of the Chicago Bulls. And it was just, being a journalist is not a glorious job. Like, it's not a glorious job. You have highs and you have lows, but it's a lot of grind. If you see the walls behind me, like, this is grind stuff. This is stuff I hang up on my wall for my notes and different things and blah, blah, blah. And to have a moment in the spotlight. And the greatest moment of that day was Adam McKay is directing the pilot episode. And I'm playing a reporter. Nobody knows who I am. I'm wearing like an old wig and makeup and a suit. And he stops everything. And he stands up and he says, hey, everyone, just so you know, none of you would be working today if it wasn't for that man. That's Jeff Pearlman. He wrote the book Showtime. He's the reason this is happening. And everyone starts clapping. And like, I remember looking at my wife and she just had this beaming expression on her face. And we had this day. And that night, we were in LA and she was like, let's go out for just a really awesome meal. And we drove home and we went out to a restaurant in like the Hollywood Hills. And it was a beautiful weather and the lights are shining all over. And it was this moment of like, it's like, I'm a kid from small town Mahopac, New York. I used to sit on my bed and read my mom and dad the articles in the high school newspaper, the Mahopac High School Chieftain. I went to Delaware because I didn't get into Syracuse's journalism program. I was a shitty cops reporter at a small town newspaper. And now you're sitting here in the Hollywood Hills, having just played a role in a show based on a book you wrote, and you're getting paid enough money that it'll help put your kids through college. It was one of the dreamiest moments of my life, and it only got better. This is part 2, the dream and the highs, and ultimately a little bit of the lows of the Winning Time experience. So it's 2022, and the show is finally about to premiere. And it's an HBO series, again, based on my book, Showtime. And COVID interrupted everything, so it took a long time. We recorded that first episode 2019. This is 2022, and it's coming out. And in the spirit of sort of old Hollywood, HBO is going to throw this kick-ass premiere party in LA. And I've never been to a kick-ass premiere party. I've never been to any premiere party. And I'm like, who am I? Like, why would you even, I'm a nothing, right? But I wrote the book. It's coming out. My wife, unfortunately, has a previously planned trip with her mother, and she's not going to be here. But my kids, Casey and Emmett, are both in high school. And I'm like, do you guys want to go to the premiere party for Winning Time? And they're like, yes. And they're like, yes. And it's going to sound dumb, but they call and they say, okay, we're going to send a car to pick you up. And I tell my kids, they're sending a car. They're sending a car? Yeah, they're sending a car. And we get all dressed up in our spiffy best. And I buy a new suit. I don't want to brag. I go to Men's Warehouse and I buy a new suit and I buy new kicks and I'm, my spiffy best. And we get in the car and my kids are psyched. And my son is even wearing a collared shirt, which is not an easy task. And the car takes us to this theater in LA. And we pull up and you see on the marquee, the old style marquee, Winning Time. And there's a red carpet, except it's purple because it's Laker colors. And we get out and someone says, Mr. Pearlman, we'd like you to walk the red carpet. And I'm like, I don't need to do that. And my kid is like, my daughter in particular is like, Dad, you have to walk the red carpet. I'm like, okay. I walk this red carpet. People are taking pictures. Nobody knows who the fuck I am, but that is okay. And this party is insane. My daughter was a huge, huge fan of the Muppets, and Jason Segel is in Winning Time. And Casey sees Jason Segel and she says to me, do you think I can take a picture with him? I'm like, I don't know, let's go ask. And I go, hey, Jason, my name's Jeff Pearlman. He's like, Jeff, great book. I'm like, whoa. He's like, Casey, let's take a picture. Let's just do it. Awesome. I go to the bathroom downstairs. Adrian Brody's in the bathroom. I'm like, I've heard he's difficult. Right? I'm like, hey, Adrian, I don't want to bother you. My name's Jeff Pearlman. Oh, man, Jeff, great book. I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, this is like the craziest shit ever, right? Truly the craziest shit ever. I'm a guy who wears shorts. You can literally, I'm not wearing anything. This is what I wear. I wear shorts. I never wear shoes. I'm a writer from Mayo Pack, New York, and all of a sudden I'm hobnobbing with Adrian Brody and blah, blah. So it's in this theater. They're giving out like popcorn and all these drinks and candies, and you go into the theater. And Adam McKay, the brainchild, gets up on the stage. Not the brainchild, but the guy, the producer, director, etc., gets on the stage. And there's all these people, these Hollywood people in there. And he's giving a speech. And my daughter actually says, I'm next to my daughter and my son. And my daughter says to me, do you think he's going to mention you? And I'm like, no, there's no way he'll mention me. There's just too many people. And he goes, I just want to say, he said something like, I'm paraphrasing. He goes, this book, this whole show is based on the writing of one of the great American sports writers of all time, Jeff Pearlman. Please stand up. Jeff, stand up.
One of the great sports writers ever. And I was a guy who thought I knew everything about the NBA. I grew up in that era and I read Jeff's book and was like, oh my God.
And it's hard to explain, maybe if you're not a parent, but like, you try to be cool for your kids, but you can't be. Like, it's really hard to be cool for your kids, right? Maybe if you're LeBron, you're cool for your kids. Most people are not that cool for their kids. And you're always fighting for your kids not to see you as sort of a loser. And in that moment, standing up in my suit, Adam McKay, Hollywood stars all over, show based on my book, my daughter and my son next to me as I stand up, might have been the singular greatest moment of my life in regards to sort of making your kids think something about you. Like, I can't overstate that. it was just really emotional. And later on that night, so the party's awesome. They're giving out like all these like winning time stuff, and all the celebrities are there, and there's this guy and there's that guy, and you're hobnobbing, hey, blah, blah, blah. And Michael Chiklis, the actor, played Red Auerbach, the Boston Celtics general manager. And they had a roll your own cigar station at this party with little winning time like wraps on it. And my daughter and my son, again, both high schoolers, they see what's going on. And my daughter says to me, we should totally smoke a cigar together. And I'm like, we should smoke a cigar together. So me, my high school age daughter, my high school age son are sitting there with Michael Chiklis smoking a cigar at a premiere of a show based on my book. And I loved my wedding. I loved my honeymoon. I loved the birth of my kids. Those are all cliche, high moments, all that. This might have been the greatest singular night of my life, truly. And when the show comes out and people love it and you're getting this feedback, holy shit, that's you. And I remember my mom, Joan Pearlman, she's a former probation officer. She's a very stoic woman. She's never read any of my books. She doesn't care about sports. She was a great, great mother, but she's stoic. And I remember when she saw the first episode and it said, based on the book by Jeff Pearlman, and I looked at her and she started crying. Like my mom, who had never seen cry in my life, started crying. And sometimes you just don't know what's going to impact someone. And that show coming on every week, and it became like, it's weird to describe something this way, especially if you weren't a Jewish kid growing up in New York in the 80s. But if you were a Jewish kid growing up in New York in the 80s, you almost certainly went to sleepaway camp. And at the end of sleepaway, or you form this bond when you're at camp where everyone loves each other and, oh, we're going to be friends forever and it's awesome and blah, blah, blah. And that's how this fell. We had cast parties. We had everyone at our house, from, Quincy Isaiah, who played Magic, to Solomon Hughes and all the guys who played. It just felt like a big, big family. It was all love. It was amazing. My book sold, phenomenally. Other books got optioned. Like it was win, 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 win. And then it kind of all went to shit. This is part 3 of the Winning Time saga, the sort of sad, not heartbreaking, but sad end to it all. So Winning Time season 1 is a hit. It's a big show, gets a lot of attention. I remember driving in LA and seeing the billboards and be like, holy shit, that's my show, that's my show. Like everything was awesome. The ratings were really good, but they weren't pick your biggest show good. They weren't Sopranos good, right? They weren't that. And the show was expensive to make. And season 2 was made, and season 2 comes along, and we're going to make season 2. It's going to be a little shorter. All right, it's going to be a little shorter. It's probably not going to be quite as expensive. Okay, not as expensive, but we're going to do season 2. And season 2 was great. It was really fun. Season 2 was really fun. It was fun to be a part of when they were making it. It was fun to get the calls every now and then. I'd go to set. What do you think of this? What do you think of that? Oh, this is great. This is amazing. But there was a problem. A big, 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 big fucking problem. Which is in 2003, you had a writer's strike and you had an actor's strike. And the show is coming out and nobody can promote it. None of the stars can promote it. I remember being on set and Adrian Brody taking these videos with his phone of the different scenes. He couldn't post any of it. John C. Reilly couldn't post any of it. No one could post any of it. And the only person who could post about the show, and I'm not just saying this, was me. Like, I'm not in the Screenwriters Guild. I'm not in the Actors Guild. Like, I could post about it. And I'm sitting there on Twitter begging people to watch this show. But it's almost being brought forth in a vacuum. Like, nobody was hearing about it. No one could hype it. You couldn't have Adrian Brody going on with Kimmel. You couldn't have Quincy Isaiah going on with Fallon. Nothing. Zero. Zip. Nada. And the show comes out, and I literally start tweeting, begging people to watch the show or else the show is going to get canceled. And I actually have people calling me saying, you can't do that. Don't say that stuff. It doesn't sound right. And I'm like, yeah, but they're going to cancel the show. They're like, no, it's not right, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, they are going to cancel the show. This does not look good. And it got really depressing and really dark. And I love Winning Time. I love Winning Time. But it got really kind of dark and sad. And, you start hearing kind of stories about some actors not being that cool or different people on set not being that cool. And it's just like, you just kind of felt a different era with the show. And it's interesting. Something that was very symbolic of the end of Winning Time is I actually appear as a reporter in season 2 in an episode. And there's a scene in one of the episodes where Jerry Buss, played by John C. Reilly, is holding a press conference. And it is to announce that Paul Westhead has been fired as coach and Pat Riley is named the new coach. And I am playing a reporter. And they gave me lines. I actually get to ask questions, which was a thrill. And I go, Dr. Buss, like I ask these questions. And he calls me Jeff, the reporter, which was sweet.
Thank you, Jeff.
Dr. Buss, there's a game tomorrow night. That game will end. Will both coaches come out and talk to us?
Well, that is something we have discussed.
I mean, who picks his starting lineup?
Well, generally in basketball, it's the coach.
If you watch the episode, you'll see Jeff, that's me. And a couple of things. I was super pumped to do it, I show up on set, makeup, craft services. I remember I got there early, so I was walking around the set of Abbott Elementary. It was all cool. And I finally go there to film, and I think we shot it, I would guess 95 to 105 times. Over and over and over and over again. From this angle, from that angle, from this angle, from that angle, with this camera, with that camera. You got that line a little off, you got that line. I literally had my lines written on my hand. I was like really nervous, and by the end, it was just sludge. It was so fucking boring. Like, when they say hurry up and wait in Hollywood, this is exactly what they mean. It was so preposterously boring. And I got there probably 9 in the morning, and I was there probably till 10 at night. And the weird thing is, late in the day, my head is starting to itch. Like I start feeling it, and I'm like, oh, what's going on? And I had a wig and sideburns glued to my head, and my head is really starting to itch. And I get home that night, and I take a shower, and my head is just enormous. And I called a woman named Caitlin O'Connor, one of the actresses. And I was like, I don't know what's going on here, but my head is exploding. She's like, take some Benadryl. I take Benadryl, I wake up the next morning, my head is even bigger. And I go to urgent care, and I actually had an allergic reaction to the glue. And the makeup artist actually gave me my sideburns. So I'm sure if I took these and rubbed them against my head right now, my head would break out. So I had this horrible allergic reaction from this really boring day. And I love seeing the episode, it's really cool, but I would never want to be an actor. So it's not going great for Winning Time. Season 2, if we're being honest, season 2 was excellent, not quite as good as season 1. And there's more and more talk that this show isn't going to make it. HBO, they're getting cheap, they're not going to keep it, they're going to cut it, blah, 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 blah. It's not looking good. The people involved are awesome. McKay, great. Kevin Messick, great. Jim Heck, great, like all great. But the ratings aren't quite there. The money they're spending, HBO cutting back. And I remember someone saying to me, how do you feel about if the show ends with the Celtics winning the championship? And I was like, you cannot end a series about the 80s Lakers. The Magic, Kareem, Michael Cooper, Byron Scott, Kurt Rambis, Riley, Bob McAdoo. You cannot end that series with the Celtics winning the championship. Like, you can't do that. And they're like, well, we might be doing that. And they shot, I think, multiple endings. And I remember being home watching the final episode with the Celtics winning the championship, knowing this awesome run was over, and my heart just dropping, and it just being profoundly, profoundly sad. And one thing that's really interesting that I learned from this experience, like, that show was filled with young actors. Like, it was an amazing opportunity for young actors. And you think Hollywood is this place where you springboard, right? You think, oh, you were in Winning Time. You played Magic in Winning Time. You played Bird in Winning Time. You played Michael Cooper in Winning Time. It's the beginning of a great career. Hollywood is a beast. Hollywood takes people and he eats them up and chews them out. And I think about Entourage, one of my favorite shows from back in the day. Most of those actors kind of vanished. And it's just a grind. And On the one hand, it makes me really sad for this show that I love, that I feel like should have been 5, 6, 7 seasons. And I feel bad for the actors who sort of had this moment in time, and a lot of whom have left the business. And yet, ultimately, more than anything, despite the heartache of how it ended, despite the sadness, despite the glue infection, I feel like I can always say that I had a book that became a TV show. And if nothing else, it paid for my kids to go to college. That's a wrap for this episode of Press Box Chronicles with Jeff Pearlman. It's me. Leave a comment below on what stories you'd like to hear more about, or if there's a particular sports figure you'd like to hear more on, hit me up. Please make sure you like and subscribe, please. And follow me on TikTok at Jeff Pearlman Author and at Bluesky at Jeff Pearlman. Thank you so much for diving behind the scenes and digging into the story. We will see you next time on Press Box Chronicles.